know I'm Mel Man, and I'm here with Marcus Maximus Mera, the artist and producer of a super awesome video game called Colossal Cave. And it's available wherever games are sold because it's a pretty big deal. So hey, how you doing?
Thank you for having me, Jen. I'm glad to be here, and it's an opportunity of a lifetime to be live radio with you, talking about such an amazing adventure that I went on producing this game.
So what exactly did you create? What is Colossal Cave 3D? What is this?
Well, I figure I'll introduce myself a little bit. Like I got started in the jewelry business with diamonds and making fine jewelry. I was one
Mhm.
of the first artists to use 3D modeling in order to design the jewelry. And that gave me some skill sets that allowed me to make video games got introduced to Ken and Roberta Williams, two
Right.
of the most famous game designers in the world. No joke. They are legends. They created Sierra Online, which is responsible for games like King's Quest, Half-Life, the Steam, where everybody buys their games. It's an unbelievable multi-billion-dollar company, and they've been retired
Mm.
since 1996, traveling the
Wow.
world on a yacht, hadn't produced a game in 30 years. And then one day I found this game, the original King's Quest, and by
Come on a little
serendipitous.
clearer. Sorry, I really want to see this.
Oh yeah,
I
all right.
might not
Here,
know about video
pull it out of
games,
the
but I'm
bag. Let me pull it out of the
interested in
bag.
what you're doing,
Boom.
Chun. Oh, there
This
we
is the
go.
original King's Quest.
Okay.
Came out on the IBM PC Junior in 1984. It was the game that
Wow.
propelled Sierra into the great heights that it was, a multi-billion-dollar company.
Oh,
And yeah, and then basically I found the game and I contacted a museum that's a local vintage computer museum. I say, hey, I found this game. Wouldn't be great if I make a story like at your festival, talk about it, the history of it. They're like, great idea, Marcus. Oh, by the way, the designers, they're also going to be presenting. Why don't we
huh.
have you lead in? So it
Yeah.
was just like a serendipitous meeting, and I stayed in touch. And then one day, I just, after reading his book, I pinged him and I go, "Hey, I just finished reading your book on Sierra." And Ken
Yeah.
was like, Ken Williams, the founder of Sierra, and the husband of Roberta Williams, was like, "What'd you think of it?" I said, "Wouldn't it be great if you guys made a comeback like Steve Jobs did at Apple, and bring Sierra to new heights?" And he
Huh.
was like, "Well, I'm working on something." And I'm like, "Oh wow, that's cool." I'm like, "I know you don't know this, but as a jeweler, I use 3D modeling, and I can make any of the assets that
You
you need."
sent me.
He's like,
Very
"Oh."
interesting.
Yeah, and he's like, "That's great. I'll be in touch with you in a few days." So a few days later, he contacted me. He's like, "Marcus, what are you up to?" And I'm like, "Anything you want, big boss. Like whatever
Right.
you want to do, I'm in." So that was how I met them, and it was like pulling two superheroes, out of retirement for one more adventure, kind of like the Incredibles,
Right.
like you pull them out, they put on their capes, and they're like, "All right, let's do this." And it was an unbelievable struggle for me as a jeweler. You got to imagine,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you've ever been in an adventure and you're in the depths in the darkness and you're trying to learn how to use these programs that you never used
Right.
before, and these terminologies and all these different things that I had to learn in such
Yeah.
a short period of time.
How do
So
you
it
think I
was a
feel just
really
getting your text and trying to understand what the heck you're talking about? He texts me and I say, "What is this Colossal Cave?" I see a website with a video game. The last video game I played was Sega. Okay. So you're hard to
well,
follow.
this game actually goes back a little further back before Sega. It
Before
was actually
Sega?
a text adventure.
What?
It was actually a game that was only in words in 1975, 76. It was a text adventure. The guy that helped invent the internet created the game. And it was the
Wow.
inspiration for Roberta Williams to make a game.
Mhm.
And it basically launched their career. And we brought it into the virtual reality world, and as well as, like I said, in all the different platforms from the Nintendo Switch to the Xbox. I know I'm talking lingo to you, but these kids know what that is. And they
I
got
know what
the
an
Sony.
Xbox is. You got to keep it clean before you have a date, right? A woman should clean her Xbox before she goes on a date, right?
Woo! I mean, it depends. You might be into, like, some people might be into it. They might be
Saying I
into
know
that.
a thing or two about a thing or two. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, so it was just a unbelievable journey to, I was the first person to work with them on this game. So I literally saw everything from the very beginning to launching the game. At one point, we had, I believe, 40 or 45 people working. In the very beginning, I was just me and Ken. Then
Hmm.
Roberta joined in, and then we started getting more and more people involved. And at one point, like I said, it was 45 people. We had like the craziest Zoom meetings. We
Yeah, I
worked
bet.
virtual. There was no office. They worked on their yacht. Like they literally were
Huh,
on their
why
yacht with
not?
their Starlink, traveling around, working on a video game. Yeah, why
Wow.
not? Right? Like, so
Now,
so now they're thinking like, oh, go ahead.
well, no, keep going, keep going.
I was gonna say they're like thinking about their next game, and
Hmm.
like, should we just go on a adventure, like real life adventure, and travel again on our boat, or should we make a game? And somebody
Mm,
suggested, why don't you do both? He's like, well, that's a really good idea.
right.
So, hopefully we can continue their ambition and their excitement in producing video games. And it's like the gaming world is better off with Ken and Roberta Williams making video games.
Now, I know you kind of answered this question, but not really fully, because, I'll just put it like this. I can tell you how to make a book, a movie, a stand-up set. I can even tell you how to create a dental office because I'm involved in that, or a song. I'm going to make my second song later. My first song's in Spanish. I barely even speak English. I don't even speak Spanish, but I have no idea how to create a video game. Now, you were making jewelry for Harry Winston, Van Cleef. I've seen, I mean, this is high-end jewelry, so you really mastered that. And now it seems like you've mastered a high level video game. Now, could you tell us about how to make this journey? Like how to make this video game, Colossal Cave? How do you do
I'm
this?
still a student of both jewelry and video game designing, to be honest with you.
Which don't
There's
go
people
together, do they?
I not really, except the 3D modeling of the jewelry. That's what really kind of gave me the artistic ability to create the models and things like that. So I personally believe that video games is one of the most complicated things you could make, more complicated than a movie. Movie, you have all these different things that
Yeah.
are involved. You have scripts, you have directors,
Mm-hmm.
but it's
Mm-hmm.
very linear. Like you're telling a story in one direction. Whereas a video game can have multiple direction, multiple endings, multiple beginnings, multiple characters. It's a whole world. You're not just recording a world, you're creating the world. So everything
Mm-hmm.
around it, in it, the sound effects, the music, the acting, the animations. So there's a lot of skill sets involved. The programming, let's get into the computer programming. And I gotta say, the one thing, if you wanted to make a video game, and that's all the people out there, I would go to
Right? Oh,
ChatGPT, or
okay.
better yet, because Bing has ChatGPT for free. So instead of paying the $20, you go on Bing and you start typing your idea for a video game design, and then you ask it, how do I make it? And believe it or not, it gives you so much unbelievable information, including code. You don't even have to, I mean, you got to know how to code to really do some really advanced games. But if you do some simple stuff, you can copy and paste the code from ChatGPT, put it into one of these engines like Unity or Unreal, and have a game that's working. And it's pretty amazing, this technology. It's like really incredible. It helps with prototyping, and even the new game that I'm working on, which I'm really excited about. I can't wait to share my new video game. It's another classic, exciting game that I'm making. I've been using AI to help me as a person that's not strong in coding to
Mm-hmm.
troubleshoot and build this game out, and it's just been really fun.
I mean, I'll just tell you this, we only met, I think, once. And you had sent me jewelry things and video game things, and they both look cool and legit. But I'm like, how does this all fit together? And how is someone doing these things? But if you're a highly capable human, you can dip your fingers or your whole hand into so many different things, and that just got real weird real fast. So, speaking of real
Well,
weird and interesting,
here's a short way of putting it. I'm an
uh-huh.
artist and I
Yes,
work in different mediums.
there you go.
So,
Okay. Hmm.
yeah, so jewelry is one meeting. It's a physical, metal, hammering, diamonds.
Yeah.
It's virtual too because I'm doing the modeling in 3D and the 3D printing. And
Hmm.
computer game is just another medium. It's just another art outlet. I do oil paintings. I do all kinds of different art. I draw. I sculpt. And it just happens to be another art form. So as an artist, I don't like to lock myself into one
Right.
type of art. I like to. I've done things like I've done a photo shoot with Patricia Fields in Sex and the City for Mary
Okay.
Claire, working as a set designer. Madonna's diamond eyelashes, Jacob the jeweler's perfume bottle cap. I did one for Helena Christensen, Shu Urimura, all these different really cool brands I got to work with, and really cool designers that I got to collaborate with, including Roberta Williams. I mean, one of the greatest video game designers in history. She's one of the first ever. She's such a huge influence because I got to work with sometimes 5 to 8 hours a day just talking to her about game design and her just her methodology of how she designs. I got to work with Paul Booth on creating a jewelry line, a very famous tattoo artist in New York City, and how his creative process. And then I take those different kinds of creative processes from these geniuses and I try to incorporate it into what I do, which is, a collaboration of all these different techniques and to make my
Speaking
own
of
art.
collaboration, you worked with Ken and Roberta Williams. For people who don't know the gaming industry, who are Ken and Roberta Williams? What is
They
their
are the
impact on the
founders
gaming
of
industry?
Sierra Online.
Okay.
Sierra Online was one of the biggest gaming companies of the 80s and the 90s. They created a game called King's Quest, uh, Phantasmagoria, which was it's FMV, which is they filmed it with live actors and they put them in a 3D world. They were the first to do that. It was a horror game. It was really amazing. It sold like $30 million in 2 weeks in
Wow.
1994 and it had
Oh my
nine
God.
CDs or nine DVDs. It was like a huge game, huge hit. Like I said, they sold their company for over $1 billion in 1996, and before
Wow.
they sold it, they brought on Half Life, which is one of the most famous games in the world, and those people created Steam. It's just whenever I talk to people in the industry, like we were in the LA Times just recently, we had a three-page
Mhm.
spread in the LA Times. Whenever I meet the people at Xbox or Nintendo, and I'm like, oh, I'm working with Ken and Roberta Williams, their eyes light up. They say, the reason why we're in this industry or I'm in this industry is because of them. They
Hmm.
paved the pathways for the industry. So they just had the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Game Awards. They were just on stage when they announced our game. They CES, which is a consumer electronics show, gave them a lifetime achievement award. It was so funny because they sent me to go get the trophy for them.
Ah,
So I go into this like amazing banquet. I'm standing on stage next to the guy that invented the internet, the guy that's the
great.
president of Sony,
Oh
another
my
guy that's the
God.
president of Panasonic, and they're like, "Who's this guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm here to receive the award for Ken and Roberta Williams." There's like a whole audience, and there's a
That's
banquet.
funny.
They're all dressed up. It was hilarious. It was like a
And you were
great moment.
probably very on your best behavior with that, I'm sure, right?
Oh, I was like, buy our game, they're back. Ken and Roberta Williams. I was like just hyping it up in front of everybody. And
Oh,
I could just
nice.
tell they're like, who is this guy?
Listen, enjoy it. You clearly worked very, very hard. And speaking of working hard, this has nothing to do with it at all. We're at the end of the interview. So feel free to share a final thought you'd like us to know, and also your social medias, website where people can find you, play the game, let our listeners know.
So when crafting, I'm from crafting jewelry to crafting virtual worlds. It's
Hmm.
been one heck of an adventure. And you can see my work at colossalcave3d.com and my jewelry at that's 3ms.tv. And yeah, so just give a follow, check it out, and hope to hear from you guys.
Awesome. And that's it. Now back to more. It came from the radio.